welcome to another week of Equity Mates. My name is Bryce, and as always, I am joined by my equity mate, Ren. We are pumped to be here. How are you?
I'm good, Bryce. We're in the middle of reporting season.
We are.
Such a interesting time for the ASX. A lot of companies are telling us how they're going. A lot of interesting numbers coming out. Today, we're going to take a step back from reporting season and talk about confession season.
You got a confession?
I do. But
Nice.
before then, we're in the middle of reporting season. I've got to ask, what's a company that's caught your attention this reporting season?
Being the retail whisperer that I am, can't go past the impressive results of Baby Bunting, online growth of 96%. Love to see it. Yeah, certainly caught my eye. There are a number of companies that have been performing well, and we do have an expert on the line. We'll get to him in a minute, but what about yourself, friend? Anyone caught your eye?
I mean, I laughed a little bit at Telstra. You know, revenue down, profit down, but that long promised turnaround is coming.
Yes. Well, maybe they should have been confessing that they are never going to turn around.
No, I mean, look, there's an argument to say that that it may finally come.
Yeah.
But we've heard it before.
We have heard it before. But as you said, confession season, Ren, something that you and I hadn't really sort of heard about as a term before. You know, it's a period just before reporting season where companies come in with their profit downgrades, let all their investors know, and I guess the broader community that they're going to disappoint, and subsequently the share prices obviously take a tumble.
Yeah, it's a good term. I mean, we've seen companies come in with trading updates before, but we only heard it called confession season for the first time this year.
Yeah.
That probably says something more about us. Than
Yes.
But in the middle of COVID, in the midst of all this uncertainty, not a lot of confessions.
No, which is surprising. And as I said, we will chat to an expert in a second. But you had an example from 2016 of what is the impact of confession season on companies and their market value.
Yeah, so Flight Centre in 2016 came out and told the market that their profit would be $30 million lower than they forecast. And the market punished them to the tune of $630 million.
Stunning.
$630 million off their market cap.
Yeah.
So if you come in with a bad confession, the market will punish you.
Yeah.
Which I guess goes to the importance of your forecasts when you're reporting, because the market builds a lot into that.
Yeah.
But this year we didn't really see. We saw some, like AGL came out in December with a minor downgrade.
Yeah.
A couple of others, but on the whole, despite everything that happened in 2020. Either people were forecasting strongly or some just weren't forecasting at all.
Yeah, well, look, I have my opinions on what is going on, but I think it's time we bring in our expert.
Rather than us continue to speculate.
It is our pleasure to welcome Rudi Filapek-Vandyck from FN Arena, a good friend of the show, to help us unpack what is going on in confession season, or the lack thereof, and also what is going on reporting season. So, Rudi, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you.
Losing my virginity on AusBiz with equity mates.
It is good to have you. We always enjoy chatting with you, and obviously you are following reporting season quite closely. So the first question is, you know, when we've chatted off air and you said, boys, there's actually not much of a confession season going on. What has happened to confession season?
Yes, I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I'm showing my age probably when I say I still remember when we had confession seasons of close to 100 companies warning investors that they were likely not to meet expectations. And actually those type of confession seasons were not that long ago. We had terrible confession seasons and subsequent reporting seasons in Australia, for example, in the year 2019, the year just before the pandemic, and we had plenty of stocks warning. This time around, we hardly had any stocks warning, and I am assuming that one of the reasons for that is that we are coming out of a very brief but very sharp economic recession, and most companies are experiencing an improvement in their operations, and expectations in the market are already so low that most don't feel like they have to issue a profit warning because they will meet those expectations.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you that, Rudi. Does the fact that we're not getting companies coming out and confessing their sins before earnings season, does that mean we're in for a good reporting season?
That's one view to take. We have to realize that the ASX listing rules say that once you are convinced that you are going to miss by 15%, that's a 1 in a 5, then you are obliged to warn the market. But of course, if you don't think it's going to be by 15%, you can still keep it until the day of reporting. So it's not a watertight guarantee here that we won't see disappointments. And of course, we will see the occasional disappointment. Think about today, for example, we had Altium that didn't quite meet expectations. And of course, AGL Energy, after warning pre-season, they still disappointed on the day of the release of their results. So there are many ways that you can disappoint. The one factor the one observation I can add to this, which disconcerts me a little bit, and which could prove my theory wrong, that we will probably have a very good reporting season, is that on my observation, companies are increasingly delaying the timing of their release. And I'll give you an example. I've looked into the reporting seasons we had pre-COVID. So we're talking pre-2019. This time around, because we're in the middle of the month, we usually had almost 30-40% more companies reporting than they have now. We actually have quite a low number of companies that have reported in the first 2 weeks of February. So that means we're going to get the big bulk over the next 14 days. And as companies were delaying in 2019, that was often a bad news scenario, because obviously they keep the bad news until later in the season. In 2020, of course, there was plenty of bad news. I'm sort of hoping now that they simply got into the habit of reporting late and didn't want to change the habit. Otherwise, we better get positioned for some bad news coming.
So it sounds like we've potentially seen the best of the reporting season and could be heading into some, I guess, murky waters.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Are there any companies that have been, I mean, if we have seen the best of reporting season potentially, are there any companies that have been standouts from your point of view?
Listen, I want to make this clear. I hope we haven't seen the best of reporting season.
No. We've heard it here first.
But I think there are already a few trends, and that is that so far, even if it's on low numbers, a vast majority of companies so far has outperformed expectations. And on our numbers, currently it's at 55% ish. That is much higher than what's normal. Normally you have about 30-35% in good seasons. Companies doing better than expected. At the moment it's 55, so we're running well above average. And the companies that truly disappoint is 15%, which is well below average, but those numbers can change over the next 2 weeks. Nevertheless, I do think we already see a few trends that we should pay attention to. One of the trends is that the winners from last year, the stocks that performed really, really well over the past, let's call it 6-7 years, the likes of a ResMed and MCore, etc., they might still come out with very good results. They're not getting rewarded in the same way as they used to be. So the market's attention is clearly on the losers from last year. And you see that with some of the other results that come out. And their share prices go much higher than the stocks I just mentioned. And I think that is a trend that also appeared in Europe and in the US. The other important trend, I think, is that those companies who disappoint, in majority so far, are still companies that are facing structural declining mega trends. And you have to think in the likes of office properties and of shopping malls, for example. And those two so far stand out. And you have to think of companies like a Mirvac and a Unibail, Rodamco, Westfield, and a few others.
So Rudi, as you've said, there's been a number of companies that have pushed back into the later part of reporting season this year. Are there any companies that you're keeping a very close eye on that are set to report in the next few weeks?
I think there's two trains of thought here. You have sectors that we all know that they are doing really, really well. And you have to think about, for example, the buy now, pay later sector, the online retailers and other retailers. I have to add here. Consumer stocks are doing really, really well. Also, the financial platforms, we know they are doing really, really well. So the challenge there will be that they are facing high expectations, and then the challenge is, can they meet high expectations? So far, we've seen with the likes of a JB Hi-Fi, for example, that those companies can meet high expectations and do even better. Then there's obviously the other companies, the ones that are in sectors that are literally climbing out of the abyss, and we have to see whether they can then meet much lower set bars of expectations. And history shows that a low bar of expectation doesn't mean that they're going to meet that easily. But this season so far, I would say that the odds are probably in favor that more companies will meet expectations than miss them.
Now, Rudi, one thing we saw during 2020, because of COVID and all the uncertainty that came with it, were some companies were not giving guidance for future halves or future quarters, just because there was so much uncertainty in what government policy was going to be, what was going to be happening with the virus. Are we seeing the same thing in this reporting season? Are there companies that are choosing not to give guidance because of the uncertainty, or are we seeing some of those companies start giving guidance again?
We see the second part, and that in itself is a very positive sign. It's something to throw in here as an extra part of research. Last year, the companies that did give guidance got rewarded in a much better sense than companies who did not give guidance. And I've seen a few analysts last year who did the numbers for that. So if you were in the position last year to be able to provide guidance, even if down the track that guidance wasn't quite accurately, then you would still get rewarded for the fact that you actually did provide guidance. And that's an interesting thing to watch this season, because if you're confident enough, of course, you will give guidance, and it might well be that the market rewards you for that, instead of going with the usual times are too uncertain. We don't know either.
So Rudi, I mean, if you were to name one standout company, we love the old stock pick here on Equity Mates. If you were to name one standout company to sort of keep our eye on going through the next reporting season, or that has been a standout for you this reporting season, what would it be?
From the ones who have already reported, I think Pinnacle Investment Management was an absolute standout so far. And you will also find that that's a fund manager basically, and they did absolutely fantastically. From the ones who are yet to report, I personally have my eye on a company called IDP Education, and I own the shares, by the way, and they've rallied really hard in recent times, and they are regarded as one of potentially the standout performers this season. But maybe it's already the price, so you have to be careful that you also have to keep an eye on what the share price is doing in advance.
Love it. Well, as I said, love a good stock pick here at Equity Mates. So appreciate those two, Rudi, and appreciate you coming on Equity Mates today and sharing your thoughts on confession season and reporting season. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out and leaves us going into the next reporting season with everyone smashing expectations. I guess the question is, will they be able to keep this up and do it all again, or will we be seeing more confessions next time around in reporting season? So Rudi, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, guys. See you next time.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Equity Mates. As always, if you would like more information, you can head to equitymates.com to check out our website, or contact us at contact@equitymates.com. But otherwise, tomorrow, big episode, Ren.
Yeah, well, a big week coming up. Tomorrow, we're talking all things small caps. We're going from the top end of the market to the bottom end, and we're going to be speaking to a small caps fund manager about some of the most interesting companies that have reported in that space. And then on Wednesday, we've got Watchlist Wednesday, bringing back, talking some more individual stocks.
Yep.
So a big week ahead of us. Join us same time tomorrow. Can't wait to see you.
Can't wait.